Nice to hear.
It's been a while.
Mine's wide open. Mine's wide open. Mine's wide open. Mine's wide open.
And welcome back to the motherfucking Minds Wide Open podcast. I am your host, Cool Hand Luke, aka Deifica Juice, and we're back.
We're back, baby.
I got Adrian Cea, Age the Mage, my motherfucking homie of homies in the building with me. The host of the Florida Vibe Directory and Social Age podcasts.
Yes, sir.
Which are both active.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud to say.
Yes, me too, man. I'm very proud to say that as well. They're published. Now just getting the content.
There's still another essay coming, right? ASA?
ASA.
I'm saying like ASA? Sorry, bad jokes. Starting off with bad jokes. But the auto episode, I haven't seen that yet, right?
It's published. It's published. It is.
Oh, you just haven't been posting clips.
That's it. I need to make the clips and post. So
we gotta establish a clip day, bro.
That's it. That's literally it, bro. So
I've been doing a lot better with that.
That's good. You know, I'm realizing that.
I don't know if that's noticeable.
It is. It is. I've been seeing you'll make more than one post in one day, and I'm like, damn, this man's going ham.
I'm 2 to 3 days a week. I post 3 times a day. That's what I'm aiming. And I would do it more, but I just haven't established the auto post yet. Like Later or Hootsuite or Buffer or one of those.
You could just use Facebook's. They have a Facebook Manager now that syncs to Instagram, and it's basically the Hootsuite but integrated directly because it's native.
Super overdue. They let you schedule?
Yes.
The videos?
Yes. From my understanding.
Well, that's probably why they made it unavailable for so long for the other platforms.
Yep, they were just fucking them over, and they're like, now we're starting our own thing. Fuck these guys.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how that never came to my attention, but thank you. This is already a learning experience. But yeah, so that's what I need to be doing on those days where I'm just going clip mode, because some days it's like all client work that's got to get done, and I just don't have it in me to fucking chop one more piece of digital media.
Yeah, man. I've been thinking about this myself. Like, we got so much going on that just scheduling the time for that media, and really it's just getting over that small hurdle of breaking that habit or getting into that habit that's the hardest. Because once I get off work, I'm thinking, all right, I either got to hit the gym or I got to, like, do something else. I want to get the fuck out of a work environment. But realistically, that's the perfect time to get into edit mode because I'm already by the computer. It's just I can sync in, tap in. It's just doing it.
That's the thing I really love about my day job right now is that it's doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just with different people around.
Yeah.
But I'm just doing what I do in my own business. So, and I'm also around people who not only can but will help me with my own business. Like there's an incredible circle of entrepreneurs there now that are just pushing each other forward, and I'm like the fucking youngest, dumbest one of them. So I'm excited.
How does that feel? Like just being? Is it like I know you mentioned earlier before we started podcast? It's very humbling.
Well, I mean, we shot the first official podcast over there last night, and it was. Humbling is almost an understatement. It genuinely was the best podcast for me to ever experience.
That's amazing, man.
It was like combining shrooms and podcasting in a weird way. Like I just felt like I was tripping because I was just like, it felt like I was in the presence of greatness, and I was just a fly on the boards.
That's amazing. That's amazing, man. And what does it look like in practice? Like, are you in the back, like on a booth, like editing, or?
Yeah, I sent you a picture, right?
No.
Did I not?
Mm-mm.
Well, I'll put this on the screen in post-production, but turn my brightness up. Usually I have bright. I fucking hate that you can't turn it all the way up without accepting that you've turned it all the way up.
Oh, that's clean, dog. Oh, that looks nice.
So that's the perspective from my tech desk there.
Very cool. I've really fucked with the room. It's like a nice
Yeah, Lex knows how to
cool
put some
setup.
shit together.
Which one's Lex?
He's not in there.
Okay. Got it. Very cool.
But yeah, man, extremely enjoyable, extremely eye-opening. This wasn't even that particular podcast. That was the podcast we shot before. We shot 2 last night with the giant Marilyn Monroe and Jokers on the wall and shit. But I'm excited to bring this podcast back.
Hmm.
I've been needing a weekly podcast. Epicalix kind of fell apart.
Yeah.
Like I've lost contact with Neil, and I'm hesitant to ask him for things. I don't know what he's going through. So I really needed to get back to me doing a fucking podcast
Yeah.
because I'm gonna lose my mind if I don't. I feel
feel that.
unproductive. And it's funny because at this point I'm officially gonna be shooting podcasts like 60 hours a week or some shit.
Sheesh. That's amazing. And the beautiful thing about that is like you said in the beginning, you're doing what you already love to do.
Well, now I'm just gonna fucking excel at it though. Like my After Effects in the past couple of days has already fucking tripled.
That's amazing. That's amazing to hear, bro. You know, it's so important to get a job, or like even if you're gonna be working 9 to 5 or whatever it may be, in doing what you're already pretty good at. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel extremely fortunate to get the job I recently did and get this promotion into this area where all I do is talk to people. And like my job is organizing events and just mingling. That's what I fucking love to do. Now, when I'm in that environment, I feel like I'm in my zone, and I've been learning a lot of social skills that I also, like you said, like I feel a little bit like it's sharpening the tip of the sword.
You know what we need?
What?
A solo episode of the Social Age podcast.
A solo episode?
I want to see you prove your skills.
That would
like
be cool.
You know?
I would love to do that. Yeah, if people, I think people would dig that too. You know, just like hearing me spout whatever. They got something against it. I think that could even make more content. Or they're like, "That's bullshit," and they'll be like, "All right, bet," and then we can have a conversation on the topic.
I like it.
Yeah, on the next one.
I'm always hesitant to try it myself. Like I've definitely given it attempts because there's no harm. Like I'm the only one that'll ever hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Worst case scenario. But I usually end up remembering that I'm just very much rubber to people's glue. Like I need people to bounce off of
Mm-hmm.
because that's the way that I function. I am just conducive more than emanating.
I see what you mean, and I think one of the biggest barriers as well is this feeling of like imposter syndrome that comes along. Like it's like, who am I to talk about this, this subject? Like, am I truly the professional of this? Like, you know, even though we've been putting in
I
the work.
don't think that's imposter syndrome. I think imposter syndrome happens when you become the really successful and you still feel like that. But at this point, it's just accountability.
Okay.
I mean, I've never, and I'm obviously not a clinical psychologist, but I've never heard anybody being diagnosed with that wasn't extremely successful, because that's where you feel like the imposter. You know what I mean?
I see what you mean.
Like, it just sounds like you just feel guilty because you don't think you're an expert, but that's just a way of acknowledging that you're still a student. Like, and as long as you frame it in that way, I think there's definitely no reason to feel like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I once had a manager, like 2 jobs back. She was like one of the best managers. She was like a mentor, really. And she's like, one of the best ways you can deal with people who are higher up than you, or people who you think might know more than you, is to just come across as a student all the time. They're just going to want to teach you things. And there's not going to be this sense of you're imposing, because you're just literally like, hey, I'm trying to learn. And if they're an asshole from there, well, then they're just an asshole. Like, you know? But if not, they're just going to teach you something, and it works in your favor.
I think that's why it's a lot of fun to learn something new for a lot of people, because it's easy to be a student at the beginning. Once you get decent at something, a lot of times it takes a lot of humility to. That's why I always say the worst sound engineer is one fresh out of school.
Mm.
Like, I was never worse. I was probably pretty good in school.
Mm.
Like, I started recording people professionally in December 2011,
Gotcha.
and I was trash. But I also had access to a multi-million-dollar studio because I was recording at the school. So it was easy to get business because I just wouldn't charge that much, and people would literally pay that much just to go into that nice of a studio.
Word.
But I, depending on how the song sounded, occasionally got lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I got better quick because I was feeling so accountable to people's money. And I ended up, in often cases, going back and doing new mixes and giving them to them for free just to be like, thanks for letting me in the first time around. And that got me a lot of return business back when I was working in Boston.
That's amazing. Just giving that value and being like, yo, it's whatever. People feel more obligated to give back to you after that. You know, it's a major point of influence for
Well,
sure.
it also just kind of showed them who I am and who I'm trying to be for the people that like fuck with me and work with me.
Word. That's such a good ethic, you know, work ethic for sure. You know, one thing that I am also realizing now is when you have to stop being the student. Like, it's like go time. It's like shut up and nut up. Like you gotta, for example, I'm working on this project. The project's not coming along, but I'm realizing I haven't entirely been trained the way I should be to do this, and I was promised I would be, but I'm not. But the expectation to meet this deadline is still there. So it's time to like take off your student cap and be like, your creativity cap needs to come on and be like, how are you going to do this yourself now? Like how, which I guess you're still a student because you're learning from yourself, but in a way from the higher ups eyes, no, you're supposed to be like,
Taking the reins as a student.
exactly. That's a better way of putting it. Yeah, it's time to take the reins as a student and just act. Put all priority towards action, right? And
Amen.
yeah, that was a little bit of a tough flip to switch for me. A switch to flip. Yeah, because I was like, wait, but I kept making this self-defeating thought that I haven't been trained yet, so I shouldn't fully know how to do this. But no, you just haven't really put bias towards action and done it yourself for a bit and see where you fuck up and keep improving.
I totally agree, man. I think
Yeah.
that's the perfect way to think about it because if you become accountable to just you, then that's when you're actually start growing, I think, the ability to really run a business,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot of different hats.
Yep.
Like, no matter what, like, the more you're responsible for, the more hats you're going to have to learn to wear because the more different people are going to end up under you. And you kind of have to know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be able to wear their hat plus the hat of their manager.
I know, man. It's a bit intimidating, but once you kind of get into that zone, I think it comes with a lot of growth. I'm probably going to be managing someone in the future. So, like,
That seems inevitable.
yeah, never really done that before. I mean, I have, I guess, in like service jobs, but not in like a corporate setting. So I think this should be really interesting. But I feel like I'm definitely building the foundation for that now with working with the supervisor I have. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been good. So overall pretty happy about that.
Well, congrats, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks. And congrats on your job too, bro. Got a lot to celebrate.
You're my favorite person to win with.
Glad to hear it.
But yeah, man. Beyond that, what you were talking about topics we should get into, I think culturally.
Yes, culturally. So one of them was the Joe Rogan topic that happened recently.
Which one?
Lots of those. But
He's like in the news every day now.
the one with Neil Young.
Oh,
Yeah.
that hurt me.
Yeah. So I never really listened to Neil Young besides when he was on Buffalo Springfield, I think is the name of the band.
That's what I know least about him. I remember. I feel exactly the way you feel about that name. Like it's something like that.
Yep. I just know that one song.
I was just like a younger Neil Young in both ways. Like him younger, when I was very young, like a kid, I would like play harmonica to his songs and shit.
Oh shit!
Like-
Wow. Was your family always playing Neil Young?
My dad was a fan for sure.
Word.
But yeah, as I grew up, I kind of started understanding some of the lyrics of certain songs, which pissed me off because like certain songs are just like pure. What's the phrase? Brain don't fail me now.
Conceited.
No, they're very virtue signaling, you know.
Gotcha. Oof. Yeah. And
And he just attacks people that don't deserve to be attacked. And like, I see why Leonard Skinner fucking dissed him in Sweet Home Alabama. There's literally a Neil Young diss in Sweet Home Alabama.
No way.
Have you ever listened to Sweet Home Alabama?
I have.
Bro.
What part of Sweet Home Alabama is dissing Neil Young? I've sang this song drunk in bars so many times.
Do you know the verses?
Not that part. Maybe just
Bro.
the chorus, really. So.
Leonard Skinner made a fucking Neil Young diss before all the grifters doing it right now.
Wow.
After Neil Young made the song Southern Man,
Word.
which is basically just saying you're all a bunch of fucking racists.
Wow.
That's what the song is.
Wow. Okay, so it sounds like what's happened with Joe Rogan has just been like an accumulation of L's leading up to this gigantic L now. You know, like he's been prepping himself for years now for this to happen.
I think he thought what a lot of people thought, which was going to Spotify will lessen my audience a little bit. I don't know if that's true at all. This is just a random thought. But he's not the person who really wanted to be the biggest.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And he was getting there on YouTube. So it was almost like, and everybody else was saying this too, if he goes to Spotify, it's going to make his audience less. And I definitely believe it got a lot of people off of him. Like, I haven't been watching the full pod. There was literally one Spotify podcast that I've actually watched of his. And it was just because one particular guest who, I think it was a Tim Dillon one, I was just like, all right, I got to fucking watch this.
Tim Dillon, Neil Young?
No, Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan and Tim Dillon?
Tim Dillon.
Gotcha.
Like, because when he went to Spotify exclusively,
Mm-hmm.
I don't use Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
So I naturally just didn't watch, like, I watched the clips on YouTube,
Gotcha.
but that's it. So the fact that he still grew when Spotify got his exclusive rights for, I think, 4 years it is.
Yeah.
That, and no one knows for how much. All we know is it involves 9 digits.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
And it was a lease. Like, he still owns this shit.
It's crazy.
But I still haven't seen but one full episode since.
Wow.
So I wonder how many people are just like waiting for him to own it again, which is going to make it probably the biggest media in the world.
Yep. Isn't that insane? A podcast now is the pinnacle of media, or will be, right now, by more than news stations, that's for sure.
Well, I think it's as simple as the fact that he'll have anyone on who's relevant and wants to say their, narrative.
Their 2 cents, yeah.
And he's one person who actually seems to be good at asking questions and relatively objective.
Mm.
And I think people crave that particularly so much, and people aren't realizing it's that simple. Like, he's curious. He's pretty objective. He definitely has certain little liberal and conservative biases in either direction, which is also an appeal for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the only people that really can't fuck with him are, like, some of the overbearing percentage of the vegan class. Beyond that, I think just about everybody loves Joe Rogan that isn't, like, mainstream media.
I agree, man. I saw a tweet about this, and they phrased it. I forgot who posted it, but I read it and I was like, oh, you got a very good point in how you stated that. Essentially, they said that America just craves discourse. Like we've been starved of discourse in the media because it's just been political rubbish coming from a one-sided angle, and and whoever they get on to talk is already on their side of the discourse. So it's like it's not discourse; it's just propaganda. And Joe Rogan brings that objectiveness, and it's anybody that can come on the podcast. So now it's truly a discourse. You're talking, I'm hearing your point of view, you hear mine, and it's back and forth. That's fucking rare in the news nowadays.
It's absurd, man.
Yeah. So when it came to this whole Neil Young thing and him trying to do this like moral high ground shit, like, oh, he's doing all this anti-vaccination stuff, it seemed so like ridiculous to me.
Well, another common thing you'll see people say, which is totally accurate, is the people who no one hates Joe Rogan more than someone who's never listened to Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Like he really is just that in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
That all you really have to do is like find any subject you want to hear spoken about because there's thousands of episodes, thousands of experts, and just type JRE and that subject into fucking YouTube or Google, and
You'll get it.
You'll get like a 15-minute clip of just
Badass.
good shit.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason 11 million people a day listen to this motherfucker.
It's insane, dude. It's insane. And I really respect Joe Rogan just as a person as well. Like his beginnings, bro. Like if you're throwing it all the way
He's
back.
just a Boston kid.
I know, bro. It's crazy. And then he's a motherfucker I used to see on Fear Factor, right? And I'm like, oh look, like the host of Fear Factor.
But he was just like a stand-up comedian the whole damn time. Like, well, he was a Taekwondo world champion at 19. So he was a martial artist first.
That's crazy.
But then he got into comedy. And I only know this because I was listening to Joe Rogan's when it was like just brand new, got into triple digits. Like that's when I started.
Gotcha.
And so that's a podcast that's literally changed my life. You know what I mean? Like it opened so many doors in my mind. Just listening to people that I never would have heard of or about or from their own mouths.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from Joe Rogan myself, especially when it comes to mixed martial arts. Like I never really looked at martial arts in such a more like an intricate way as when he's talking about it and he's talking about strategy.
See,
and
that
shit.
part is inevitable no matter what subject you're listening to, because he's still gonna like make some sort of metaphor.
Yeah, to martial arts
that like brings him back to Gracie or something. You know what I mean?
So I was like, oh yeah, I guess that that makes sense.
Or chimpanzees.
Another thing was when he had Paul Stamets. That was definitely the moment where I was like,
that was a major one. But
oh,
there was so many, man. Like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson, like fucking Green, Lex Friedman. He made Lex Friedman a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I haven't seen the Lex Friedman one, but I follow him on Twitter.
One of the greatest podcasts.
Interesting. I gotta watch it.
He is
seems
gonna
like
be as big as Joe because he's just as likable. But
Interesting.
He's the most humble, like self-humbling dude imaginable. But he's like this AI expert from MIT, and he recently left MIT to just do this full time. And he moved down to Texas, I believe, to be around the modern, like, he's friends with Elon, so like he's friends with Joe.
That's the place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
That's a highly recommended podcast for me.
All right, I'm gonna watch it.
And you can watch him as just this humble genius, like asking other geniuses questions. Like he interviews a lot of academics, but also down to like comedians and shit.
It's crazy how much media has transformed, right? Like podcasts, you can watch them, but like listening to them, like I'm finding myself listening to a little bit less music now and either listening to podcasts or audiobooks. And I love reading, but ideally I only like to do it before bed, and even then, a lot of times I'll just be so tired that I'm like, my ass is just going to bed. So listening to it, I feel like I make those little moments of time when I don't have, I don't need like I'm in my car driving somewhere, I'm fucking showering, I don't know, like something that I can make productive. All of a sudden, I'm listening to something in the background and I'm getting the information.
That's pretty much the brilliance of them. Like
Mhm.
they were originally just audio. Like I wonder how old you have to be to not even know that, you know? Because those people are alive.
Yeah, they are alive, bro.
But it really is just a game changer in a lot of ways. And
Mhm.
that's why Joe Rogan is the big conversation right now.
Big fan.
Because they couldn't hide the numbers because he owns them. He owns the numbers. And they have to put out their numbers to fucking get their investors to do what they need and
So there's
their
no one,
advertising dollars and all that bullshit.
so no one's there to hide them or do some type of mischievous shit with those numbers.
And so because he's embarrassing the mainstream media has to attack him.
Of course. What choice? I would say what choice did they have? They could be good people.
Well, I
But
mean,
they decide not
there's
to be.
plenty that don't, but you know,
Yeah.
they don't probably progress very high in that industry.
Agreed.
Like, and a lot of people just go, okay, we're gonna go do it too, because that's what like Breaking Points. I listen to them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know them?
No, I don't.
It's Crystal Ball and Sager. I forget his first name, but basically they come from mainstream media, but they wanted to actually just report the news.
Mm.
So they just started a YouTube show that they also I don't know if they have it on Patreon or somewhere, but you might have even seen them. I think Joe's had them on.
Pretty cool. Lately, I've been getting a lot of my news, especially worldwide news, because I love global news. From this account called
Look, if they're
Atlas.
fucking shadow banned, the suggestion wouldn't come up, and I'm subscribed.
Breaking Points.
Always keep a very close eye on the people who are around Joe Biden, who's lobbying them, and the dollars that are being spent. Now, we've been warning here, both even here and on our past show, about Steve Ricchetti, who is the Deputy White House Chief of Staff under Joe Biden, and whose brother, who he co-founded a lobbying firm with, remains one of the highest paid lobbyists here in D.C., miraculously around the same time that Biden becomes president. Well, who's paying Mr. Ricchetti? Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. Amazon, this is recent disclosure filing, show, has paid $90,000 during the last 3 months of 2021 to Jeff Ricchetti, who is the brother of Steve Ricchetti, to lobby on issues related to the regulation of online marketplaces and consumer privacy, amongst other things.
You know,
now that is pretty revealing, don't you
when
think?
it comes to like
Which is,
lobbying,
you have
bro,
a small lobby
it's literally
as
just
described by
legal
Ken Vogel here at the New York
bribery.
Times,
bribery.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
So
And
30K
I can
a
see the
month
good
in
side of
order
lobbying.
to
I mean, I
lobby
think in its
on behalf
infancy,
of
lobbying
Amazon,
had a
who is
lot
the
of
brother of a senior
positive
White House
effect
official.
on politics,
Ricchetti does not
but
get
definitely
nearly
not
the
today.
amount of
Like,
view
it's a
and,
beast.
public consciousness that he
It's
deserves. But
just
he and
how
his brother
it all
had one of
works.
the top
Like, I
coffee
mean,
shops here in
at this
Washington.
point,
And now
no
all sorts
one
of tech
is going to
firms and others
be
are paying his
powerful
brother
enough
in one of the most
to
clear
change
pay
that
schemes
Mhm.
that could possibly
because there's so
exist.
much money
Yeah, and he
behind
simply doesn't seem to care.
that
So, I mean,
being a
he
thing.
said
Yep.
that, his White House would
Billions.
not be corrupt. He said he wouldn't have
Like,
undue
all the money.
influence in all this.
Yeah. I'm
Steve
gonna have to
Ricchetti
see this.
said,
I've never
"My
actually
brother
seen
doesn't
this.
lobby
It
me.
seems
He lobbies
extremely informative and
And they annoy me sometimes. Like I
fact-based.
disagree with them sometimes because they definitely have their opinions, but like they're pretty much objective.
Okay.
Like she's a little more liberal, he'll lean a little more conservative, and it works.
Very cool. Lately, I've been getting my global news by this account called Atlas News.
I feel like you've mentioned that to me.
Yeah, I love it. It's just literally a fucking I'm a guy in his 20s who has an obsession with news and how objective it should be. So what he does is anytime something crazy goes on in the world, you can actually find it on Twitter or accounts in that country reporting on it live in a way that is not sourced by normal media. Or mainstream media, and he just scours Twitter and anything related to that, and he'll pull the most factually based information from that and
And
post
this
about it.
he's on Twitter?
Atlas News, yeah. On Instagram primarily. That's where I watch him. But I know he uses Twitter.
Well, I assume he's probably pretty big on Twitter then,
Maybe. I actually haven't checked.
because that's where I would prefer to get news than.
Then Instagram. They shadow ban him a lot on Instagram because he's always posting shit that let's see, Atlas News. Atlas Network? Nope. Atlas News. Nope.
Probably got booted.
Mm-hmm.
It's
one-
sad that we're in the state right now where that's my first assumption.
It's terrible, man. But yeah, he I think he's primarily on Instagram.
You'll have to send me that.
For sure. Really, really good source of news because he just sources it straight from, the horse's mouth. So
I like that methodology. I mean, it's pretty realistic that if you go to like if you could somehow gather as much of the original source type sources on Twitter. Like I follow a few things that are pretty one directional, like Disclosed TV
I've seen Disclose TV, yeah.
and I'm trying to think of the other ones, but like they definitely give you more information on, I guess, more specific topics,
Yeah.
but things that they know aren't going to be covered in the mainstream
Mhm.
is the point.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of them, man. And I think it would be prevalent if people just shared them more.
Agreed.
Like everyone kind of knows of one, and a small group of people like just kind of watch a bunch.
And I think what's hindering this spread to work correctly is obviously just tech censorship, right? So like anytime, for example, Atlas News, he'll post factual information with photography of the scene. Let's say there was a bombing, or here's a good one. The United States, before leaving Iraq, they did one bombing saying, oh, they were threatening the airfield, right? Turns out the United States completely fucked up on their intelligence and just killed like a whole family. So
yeah, I've seen that on Breaking Points.
yeah, so he reported on it, right? And he showed like pictures of the aftermath, like hours after it occurred, before the news got around to it like a week later saying, "Oh, my bad," and he was basically saying unsure whether or not this was actually ISIS militants, but this is the aftermath of what's going on. And he showed it, and they took it as Instagram immediately flagged it and said, "You're spreading propaganda, misinformation, but also that could be potentially harmful to others. Like it could be radicalization, right? Like as if ISIS were posting on fucking Instagram or something, right? So they like remove his account.
That's ridiculous because a lot of them like leave the ISIS accounts up. Like Twitter leaves ISIS accounts up.
They've left the Taliban fucking account up for the longest time, bro. There's so many double standards here. And this ties into like we were talking about earlier, like the removal of the dislike button, right? That is so ridiculous to me because it's a point of media that we understand. Okay, if this video has so many dislikes, it's probably bad or it's probably not the best version of what I'm looking for, right? Now with that removed, it's obviously removed for the purpose. It's not for people's feelings. It's not because
And that's such
bullying.
a like I'm surprised anyone believes that.
Yeah, for real.
It's not a great excuse.
It's not at all.
Like they didn't even try to be like some psychologist told us or something. Like they didn't really like try to make it sound real or anything. They were just like, yeah, you know, that like
it's gone.
like when you're lying to a girl you don't really care about that much. It's just like it is what it is, you know?
That's that.
There's no dislike buttons. You'll feel better. Trust us.
That's it. It's ridiculous. But obviously it's for an agenda or it has a purpose that they want, created.
The money is where the money is.
That is the truth. That is the truth, man.
And so communication is difficult. So what we have here is a failure to communicate. Cool Ad Luke.
It's one of my favorites.
True that. I love how he says Cool Hand Luke at the end too.
Well, that's what Cool Hand Luke said. Like as they killed him, or right before they killed him. Like, do you know Cool Hand Luke?
I know who he is. I haven't seen the actual movie.
Paul Newman basically plays this guy who starts off the movie chopping the heads off of parking meters,
Mm.
and like he's just walking down the street drunk, like doing it, but not even like really taking the money or anything. And the cops pull up, put him in jail, and he ends up in this weird jail where the warden just kind of doesn't ever let you leave, no matter what you did.
Holy
And it's
shit.
just like this long, weird story. And then eventually he escapes at the end and he's on the run. And they finally catch him in this church. And they're basically having a standoff. And he, like, I don't remember if he, like, smashes the window and says it. But he's like, what we have here is a failure to communicate. Or something to that effect. That might be a paraphrase. I haven't seen it in so long.
Yeah.
But basically, me relating to that is powerful to me.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
always being obsessed with communication and always feeling like it's not there the way I want it to be
Right.
with everybody at all times.
You know, it was interesting, like when we had that podcast with Otto, and he was really touching on like nonverbal communication, and we even mentioned it, right? Like, that I think is also such a misconstrued concept for people, right? Like a lot is said without saying words. You know, it's just like how we receive it and how we give it back.
But like, it's almost like a slight feeling of being aware of how different everybody's filter is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just can often tell that what I said didn't fully translate.
I know I've been there, bro. I feel like I've been in that situation more at work because they'll state something and they're like, on the Zoom call, I can kind of see their face and they're like, huh? And I'm like, did I not say that right? Like, I'm pretty sure I said that correctly. Or in a fucking Slack channel, right? I'm typing it up and then it's totally taken the wrong way. And I'm like, I feel like I'm fucking texting a girl at like 12 a.m. and that did not come across the right way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. It's tough to find the most universal way to say everything.
It is. It is.
That's why I guess it's nice to talk to as many different kinds of people as possible, because then you just eventually
Get good at it.
probably get a better grasp on how everyone interacts.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me think of some of the people I've, started working with recently, and realizing, and that's one fun thing about producing podcasts is you watch the same people interact with a lot of different people, and you
Mm.
really start to understand how they think and move,
Interesting.
and the opportunity that I have now to do that with people who know and understand way more than me, I can just feel myself about to grow a bunch, because I've already feel a little bit of elevated perception when it comes to just how I'm perceived
I love that.
in a way that I haven't since, probably a shroom trip of many years ago.
Yeah. You know, I've realized podcasting has helped me in a very similar manner. Like interviewing different people, I'm realizing that I feel like it's like working a muscle of like receptiveness. Like I ask the question and then I like see for a response and then I can totally feel whether or not the question went over someone's head or like it's hitting and then how I'm being interpreted, right? So it's like, okay, now I got to get better at like how putting myself out there or the questions I'm asking.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. It's pretty badass, honestly.
I think the one of the big steps a lot of the time, especially for people like me who are always in their own head, is like making sure you remember to be listening at all times. You know what I mean?
You're not wrong, bro.
Because I'm one of those people that can just fall into my head and then I'll suddenly wake up like, how much of the last fucking 5 seconds can I get back? Like, quick, use your memory.
Or just try to anchor on the last word they said and be like, yeah, like totally.
See, I can't do that because I can't fake it, so I'll make them repeat it.
Gotcha.
But then I get self-conscious about how often I'm making someone repeat something. Or if I'm not in the current engagement, like if it's two other people talking to each other, I'm in the conversation, but I'm not speaking at that time, then I'm not going to interrupt them to be like, yo, can you shut up for a second so he can say what he just said again, like all of it. So it's an awareness
Definitely.
thing.
I have had that happen to me mid podcast, man, a few times in Florida.
I know,
Piper,
I've seen it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think only maybe like trained eyes can see it. Is maybe I'm hoping the general public.
Well, they
can't.
don't usually have a tell
Yeah.
that's happened. Like I definitely see it happen, but I've known you for fucking 20 years or something. Like,
yeah, I'll be talking to someone and they'll be either it's because they're repeating themselves or I don't know, but it'll just cause me to go in this like little trance and I start thinking about things. I'm like either thinking about next question or
that's exactly what I mean.
something, and I'm like, oh fuck, snap back.
Yep.
Eh,
It's tough to do that just as a tech a lot because you're often not in the conversation. And it's cool when you have someone that brings you in the conversation sometimes running podcasts because that I think is interesting based off who's actually like there's never a podcast where I don't know the tech and they're not in on the conversation and I don't like them for it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I can name techs from a lot of different podcasts. And I think that it's an interesting phenomena I never really think about too hard beyond making a Jamie reference. You know what I mean? When I'm trying to like explain to people what I do who don't really understand it, but they kind of know of the Joe Rogan podcast. I'll be like, you ever see an episode? They'll be like, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you know Jamie? That's what I do.
That's who I am.
Like I'm over there. And I said reference Jamie because most podcasts, especially of that size, have multiple people running and everything. Like
Yeah.
there's usually audio, video switcher, a camera person, like a runner, and one on the like computer to constantly bring up everything you're talking about.
Yeah.
They get like big operations.
I realized that watching Bert Crenshaw's podcast.
Bert Kreischer?
Bert Kreischer. Crenshaw.
Bert
Bert Kreischer.
He's a fat guy with no shirt on, but he has an eye patch.
The machine. yeah, him. He.
No, I mean Bert Crenshaw has an eye patch.
No, that's the politician, but the just hearing him say jokes and then hearing the background noise, you'll hear like 5 different laughs happen at once. I'm like, how many people are running this podcast?
The Two Bears One Cave podcast is in the YMH studio, and YMH is like that's Tom Segura and his wife Christina Pazinski's network, and they just have a bunch of bangers. So they have their podcast, which started it all, Your Mom's House, YMH. And then that grew such a massive thing. They started expanding. They added this comedian, Ryan Seckler, does this podcast that interviews like comedians about their like childhood specifically. And then it gets real like depressing. It's all the depressing shit about people's lives. It's really fun if you're in a dark place. They have Dr. Drew's podcast. So they have Dr. Drew After Dark. And it's just Dr. Drew humoring the YMH network fan base.
Okay.
And it's hilarious because he's always like cringing.
I see.
And he has a lot of chemistry with the people you hear laughing in the background, the Booth Boys, because he's solo on that show. So he's just constantly talking to the Booth Boys.
Gotcha.
And he gets deep in their lives, helping them improve their lives and asking questions. And it's a lot of fun. It's a really good podcast.
Interesting.
But on top of that, you know, Tom does like mini documentaries. Like one of the things in their podcast will be the craziest videos that Tom finds, and they're fucked up, but he thinks they're funny. And then someone will get insanely popular from that, like someone who's really fucked up. You know what I mean? Like there's some specific ones, and then there's one who's like this fucking old white dude in a apartment in Brooklyn who just posts videos like, I want big black guys to come by and fuck me. My address is at this, and like I forget his name. It's like RHP is his initials, and that's what they call him. But they literally like interviewed him after getting obsessed with it and playing it too much and having the drops, like if they had it on the soundboard, certain things at certain times, because Tom is just a sicko and the Booth Boys love it. And so the content that they produce as a network so consistently and incredibly has just grown this massive fan base in so many different directions because they have so much variation, but it's all born of his mind. And then he'll do things like a mini documentary on RHP. Like the guy, like this is how we found him. This is who he is, and then he sends Dr. Drew to his fucking house to interview him. Like it's wild. The man's a genius.
Wow, that's crazy. Like the cross content, the network. That you can
YMH
create.
is one of the sleeper like mega podcast networks.
Jesus, very cool, very cool. And I'm realizing also that, well, I've known this now for a little bit, ever since like Spotify started bought Anchor, right? Like that was my realization. That was
Bro,
like,
in that moment, I was hitting everybody like, "Yo, did you fucking see this?
yeah.
Like,
I
do you
was
know what
like,
this means?" But I
crazy.
forget that everyone I know doesn't produce
No.
podcasts. You know,
When they bought Anchor, I was like, yo. And then they just started buying podcast networks, and they're just making them exclusive.
bro, they've been buying podcast networks. But they also bought the biggest podcast in the world.
Yeah.
Like, period.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's and it made it bigger.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't make it bigger. Like,
There was ROI.
it was almost like they. I don't know, man. It's just been really brilliant moves the whole time. Like, I forget the name of the sports podcast network that they bought, but like, it was started by some famous announcer or someone. I forget the details because I'm not a fucking ESPN kid, but it was 32 podcasts and they bought it for like well over $1 billion. I think it was.
Holy shit.
Like, there's just deals nonstop.
Whoever's heading that department is absolutely killing it.
I really wonder who makes those decisions.
Yeah. Because those are some pretty like big
I know
moves.
it's owned by some Swedish billionaire,
Power plays.
but I don't know if he runs that much of it. I don't have those
Probably
details.
someone, yeah, that's head of that department.
You never know. I mean, sometimes there's just like boards,
Yeah.
and if you got a board, you got to run a decision past them, like buying the Joe Rogan podcast for 4 years.
Yeah. Now being in a corporation, I've been seeing more insight and how it all starts is you essentially just gotta, like anything, you gotta make a proposal, show proof of work, like it could work, you know what I'm saying? And then the board will ultimately make that bigger decision, but the company has relatively already started moving the wheel on it. And then just being like, look, we've kind of already done it. We can make it happen fully if you give us permission. And then they scale it to Kingdom Come. So
It makes a lot of sense. I
Yeah.
wonder how much that varies among different kind of companies or corporations based on size or just a culture, you know?
yeah, that's a big point. And who's on the board, bro? Like, I've learned that for certain companies, there are companies that their model is to be like the vultures of the tech world, right?
Yeah.
Their
Very
job,
Apple-y.
yeah, like their job is to buy into a board, right? So they'll purchase a massive stock portion of it, now have enough decision power to then get on the board. And then from the board, they'll start selling various parts of the company off.
It's almost too similar to government, you know what I mean?
It's insane, dude. It's insane. And they'll literally just pick it piece by piece and take out all the scraps and make massive amount of income or revenue from this model. It's terrible.
Explains a lot.
Yep.
It really does.
Yeah.
Damn. Who's the most likable tech company? Like,
That is a tough question.
because like even Spotify pisses me off. Like the first thing they did when they fucking got the Joe Rogan podcast was censor it.
Yeah.
First thing they did.
Yeah.
And Joe had to like deal with it and like pick his battles, and I think one of the battles he won was like all right, that was the deal for that money, but now you can't tell me I can't have Alex Jones back on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like they took down fucking Chris D'Elia episodes. Like one of my favorite people to watch interact with people.
Ridiculous.
Yo, I love watching his like comeback. Like he's been killing it. Like he's everywhere again, and like no one's bothering to say anything because
At all.
he proved his point. And I mean, I haven't even really seen comments of people saying shit anymore.
As they
Brian
should, man.
Callen too. He's got a lot of podcasts going again.
Brian Callen. I think I gotta see this
the,
guy's.
the Fighter and the Kid with Brendan Schaub.
I think I gotta see his face.
He basically has been podcasting with Brendan Schaub for a very long time, and they're all friends with Rogan pretty closely. You remember Brendan Schaub? He's
me
the
see.
one. He was the UFC fighter that Joe Rogan on the podcast told him like, "Yo, you're done. You gotta retire." And he was like super against it. And it was like this emotional thing, and then he actually fucking retired.
Holy shit! No. Joe Rogan breaks
Yeah,
down.
I don't know, man. It was just, critiquing the fight. I felt like I was doing good, mixing some things up. I was loading up on my punches.
Oh, yep.
He used his reach better than he's done before in earlier fights. He was more patient, not flying in.
He had a nice wide stance too.
Yeah, we want him to come in. And the wide stance is when you stall, I started to throw inside leg kicks, which I should have thrown a little more, and I threw a head kick. And then some of the critique I've been getting is, how on the ground could you let him get to mount and do this stuff? When he hit me with the uppercut, I was out of it. And my initial reaction was, I guess, looking at the replay, to go, it looks like I went for a takedown.
Now Brendan Schaub is
I came to
killer with the podcast, right?
Oh, he's got Thick Boy, which is his network now, and he's basically started it.
He works with Theo Vaughn, right?
Because basically he had the Fighter and the Kid with Brian Callen for many years, and they were really popular, partially because of Joe Rogan, partially just because of their chemistry, and Brian's wild. And Brian's a comedian, and Brendan was a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
And then Brendan eventually became a comedian. His first special was pretty damn bad, but I haven't watched his stand up in a while, but I enjoy him on podcasts, mostly because the Fighter and the Kid then basically spun off because Theo Vaughn would be on all the time, and the chemistry was insane. So then Brendan and Theo just started The King and the Sting, which immediately became one of my favorites. But
Hilarious.
Theo's not on it a lot these days, but the cast that is on it is a lot of fun together. They got Eric Griffin.
Nice.
You know him? The fat guy from Workaholics. The mustache.
I gotta see his face.
Damn,
Yeah,
what do you know, bro?
Dude, I'm a face person, Like, I knew who Brendan Schaub was, but I needed to see what he looked like to get a good idea. Yes. Okay. I know who Eric Griffin is. Yep.
Yeah. So it's often Eric Griffin in his seat, and then
He's funny.
a lot of times Stevie Weeby, who's Bobby Lee's little brother.
Okay. Yeah, I know who you're talking
And
about.
Chris D'Elia has been on like the past several episodes.
That's
like,
cool. That's
which has
cool.
made it like him getting like up in that circuit again has just been so much fun for podcasting again. Because
I'm
I've been a
gonna
big
watch-
fan of comedy podcasts for quite a while, man.
I'm gonna watch this Joe Rogan breakdown Schwab video because I didn't know he was the reason he retired from UFC. I knew he was a UFC fighter. I just didn't know it was Joe Rogan that got him there.
Yeah. Well, that not got him there, but got him out of there.
Yeah, got him out of there.
I was in a boy band though. When I was younger.
You guys didn't know that,
Was this
huh?
after the gang?
It would have to be.
And then didn't you go
You
on like
can't
some?
go from
Was it
boy
America's
band to
Got Talent or
gang?
something?
Oh no, the other one.
You're not, what gang you gonna be in?
You can't go from
Imagine they're
Give
just
your
like,
money, fool.
hey man, we got to
Singing
talk to you
too.
about something. What the is this?
I'm telling you, man, they're like it's a great show, and a lot of times just because of the people that are added to it
Yeah,
after the fact. But
this dude's funny.
yeah, Eric Griffin's fun. He streams like Warzone a lot and shit.
Really?
Yeah,
I would never would have guessed.
yeah.
That's insane.
And he's super close with Bobby Lee.
Wow. I've seen him on a lot of series. Like, that's where I normally watch him, or movies.
Yeah, he was really funny in Workaholics, but I don't know if I've ever really watched him in any. I mean, he was in that show about the Comedy Store back in the day. That I think they then had to change to like a generic name, even though it's about the Comedy Store.
Mm-hmm.
And I never watched that because it was more of a drama.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what else he's been in.
Let me see.
I gotta
Montez
remember
Walker.
what drops I have here. I am the. What is that? I don't know what the fuck that is. That's not supposed to be there. Gotta clean up the damn soundboard.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, dog, I appreciate you doing this.
Of course, man.
I think I can definitely get back in the swing of this and hopefully keep it relatively efficient on the post-production side, because I don't want to do this one live.
Gotcha.
I don't think,
All right.
because that's a little too much.
Word.
Like, I'm always down for live podcasts, but I want one that's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that would be a
Just
good
because I
idea.
really want to be able to get my shit off.
Exactly. Yeah, I think this would be a good idea to not do live.
Yeah.
Especially depending on your guests. But
Fair enough.
you get some rowdy people in here sometimes who've got some hilarious things to say, but people can misconstrue shit, you know?
Where the hell was... Oh, I gotta go to this, man, which is ridiculous. Now, explain to me why it would be at the bottom there. How does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
But yeah, man. Shit, I got nothing else.
Yeah.
Plug your pods, bud.
Yeah, man. If you guys are listening, check out the Florida Vibe directory at Minds Wide. You'll be seeing a lot of the posts posted there. And the Social Age, which is at the Social Age, or you can follow me at Adrian Cea. I'll be posting the clips there primarily as well. They're streaming on all platforms: Spotify, Apple, YouTube. I recently updated all that shit, so it's there.
And we're gonna get some. I gotta fucking fix my Apple. I think. I don't think I'm on Apple anymore since they made the changeover. Like, Spotify made it so you have to connect with them personally.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know
Anchor
about the
used to
change.
auto distribute to
Yeah.
Apple and shit.
It took me a while to even get on Apple.
Now you have to like go in and connect your Apple ID.
Holy shit.
So you might not be on Apple if you haven't checked it.
Interesting. I haven't. I'm gonna have to double check that. Oh, dude, you want to hear something fucking crazy? I know we're like wrapping up, but some shit that I cannot believe happened to me like
What?
last night. All right, so get this. I got a fucking crazy DM. This girl starts liking all my photos, so I'm thinking it's a bot, right? But it's what people do to get your attention. And then she starts commenting on my photos like, hey, I asked you a simple question. I asked you a question on your on DMs. Can you please answer? I'm like, okay, that's odd. And then she comments on
I like the DM request function because you don't have to commit to like.
I don't gotta look into that shit. Yeah. And then she comments on another post. It's a simple yes or no question. Can you please answer me? I'm like, that's a little bit forward. Okay. So I'm like, who the fuck is this bitch? And I like look, and it's on Instagram. It's a girl from Orlando, and she has one post, and it's like 300 followers, 300 likes. So I'm like, one post. This could be a spam account.
That's
Look
usually my
sketchy.
instinct.
Yeah. But she had like her location, and it was a actual, well, I don't know. It was a picture of a girl. That's all I know. And it looked like some bougie girl just posting on the sidewalk. So I'm like, all right. So then I look at the DM, and it's a random ass DM. It's like, hey, my friend, China is getting married on Friday. This is the guy. And then she shows me a picture, an Instagram picture of her friend and China and this dude. And she's like, I just need to know, are you China's ex-boyfriend? And I'm like, I didn't answer. But I clicked because Instagram will hide the photo that they post because it's like, this could be, I don't know, in danger to you, I guess, or just like not pleasant to view. But it was just a screenshot of the profile and her in the Alps with this guy. But then afterward, this is where it gets crazy. I like don't answer, and this girl texts me. I get a fucking cell phone text saying, hey Adrian, are you China's ex? And I'm like, what the fuck? How did she get my number? It like blew my mind.
You definitely don't have it on any platforms?
Here's what I learned. If you have a business account on Instagram, Instagram will immediately make it so that people can use your mobile number to call you because technically you're a business. You get me?
But you can like fix that in preferences.
I didn't know that. I didn't even know it was activated, to be real with you.
You don't ever look at your account?
It doesn't show up on my account, on my end, when I look at it. It doesn't show the call me option. You get me? I didn't ever really saw it on there, so I was like very confused. So I'm like, how the fuck are people have access to my number this whole fucking time? You know? So she's like texting me, and then she's like, hey, I'm really not trying to bother you. I just need to know, yes or no. And I'm like, yo, okay. I'm like, no, who is this? And she texts me back, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Okay, good. Oh, no. I'm like, so she calls me, actually. She calls me. Before I text her, she calls me. So I'm like, who the fuck? But I blocked her number. So I went immediately gone. So I'm like, okay, but she can still text me even though I blocked her. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going to see who this is. So I unblock her, and then I call her. She doesn't answer. She's like, hey, I'm at work. But long story short, China she tried to talk to my boyfriend, and I'm just trying to figure out if you're her ex or not. I'm like, okay, this bitch sounds like she just got a whole lot of drama.
It does feel like the energy of a bitch on that kind of conquest.
Now that's the type of vibe I started getting after all that text message and that call.
I mean, this must be like a secondhand social media. She's like hitting up everybody within a certain follow list or following list.
I agree. That may have the name Adrian, and I just happen to fall into that category. Inspector Gadgeho, I guess. She was just like on it, bro.
She like went to somebody's follows and like typed in Adrian and just like, all right, there's 20. We're going through the list.
We're going through all of them. Calling them, text.
Like the Terminator going through the phone book.
Everything, bro. I'm fortunate because this exposed a security flaw for me. Like people can get my number, But I don't know. It was weird.
Well, I'm glad you helped her.
Yeah. So I just told her no. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. This is the wrong Adrian.
She was at least polite enough to say it.
Yeah, she's like, this is the wrong Adrian. My name's Bree. Don't worry about it. My bad. And I'm like, all right. And then she removed all her comments from my post, bro. Crazy.
Well, shit. I mean, leave them there for the algorithm, bitch. You already did it.
Facts. At this point, bro, maybe took away her likes, too, from all I know. So this shit all happened last night. Blew my mind.
Well, she probably is like I cover my tracks kind of chick because she's so like that's probably how she discovered what she's looking for in the first place.
She's probably trying to really.
So she probably moves like a ninja online, like covering her footprints as she goes.
I've heard women can get this like in depth. I've just never seen it really, and
that's something to be fearful of.
Now I've seen it firsthand. I'm like, damn.
Fun story.
Yeah, crazy, dude. This all happened last night, and yeah, that's that.
I just put your handle over your torso.
Please follow, and this is it. It's right here at Adrian Cea. Don't get my number. It's not on my profile anymore. So
I might try to see if that's the case or not. I don't know.
I really thought I was about to get hacked, bro, or some bullshit. So,
but yeah, man. If you listen to this, thank you. I see there's like 4 or 5 listens still every time I drop something, which I'm brutally surprised by.
Pretty cool.
I'm always like, who are you? If that's you, reach out, man. I'll give you daps. I love you.
Much love.
Hit it.
Mine's wide open. Damn. Mine's wide open. 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 Damn. And we out.